When you put that rice in the refrigerator and it chills and then recook it, those starches change, they
Mhm.
reconstitute, and now they are dietary fiber. And it's going to act as a resistant starch. It's going to resist digestion in your body. So that's a real thing, and that's basically the principle of the flour that I'm using in my bread. So it's resistant to digestion. So it's dietary fiber, it's passing through your gut, nourishing your gut as it goes through your body and comes out the other side.
Welcome to Cut the Crap with Beth and Matt, the world's #1 no bullshit health and fitness podcast.
Are you ready to cut the crap with your diet and exercise, get strong as fuck, and build a healthy relationship with food? Then you've come to the right place.
Let's go. If you'd like to support us in the podcast, join our Patreon where you get exclusive content, which consists of monthly workouts you can do at home or at the gym, monthly challenges that are either strength, habit, or mindset based, and access to over 100 plus low-calorie, high-protein, family-friendly meals. These are all designed by a professional chef who is certified in nutrition. These recipes are already in MyFitnessPal for easy fucking tracking. New recipes are also added each week.
We believe that fitness is for everyone, so this is our way of getting you started on your health and fitness journey at a price most everyone can afford. So what the fuck are you waiting for? We'll see you in the Patreon.
Hi, Julie.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Great, thank you.
It's so nice to meet you.
We have Julie from Doh Joy bread, my favorite bread. Oh my goodness. High fiber, high protein, low calorie. It's the best stuff that I don't even know how I came about Doh Joy. Did you reach out to me?
I did.
Yeah.
Love
It
that.
was so Julie, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe what got you started in Doh Joy?
Yeah. Okay. So, gosh, where do I start? I have been in the food business for about 12 years. And so I specialize in food products. So, working for my company, Launch Kitchen Brands, I was a consultant to other entrepreneurs who were trying to get into food and grocery stores primarily. And so I have a background in manufacturing and commercialization. So I would basically take their ideas and help them package the idea, get a first concept together, trial the product with consumers, and essentially just get it launched for them.
Mhm.
I did that in all kinds of product categories, everything from sauces to cheese to ice cream. But my team started to get a really nice specialty in baking. And coming out of COVID, there was a lot of interest in better for you baked goods. And so learned a lot about different sweeteners and different ingredients that you can use to give you much more nutrition in your foods
Mhm.
and how then to balance that with actually making it taste good too.
Mhm.
And really, the key to doing all of that is to use as few ingredients as possible because simplicity in ingredients is something that we all talk about and people have different points of view on it. But when it comes down to it, the biggest benefit of having a product with simple ingredients is it just tastes better. You get the pure flavor of each ingredient when you only have a few ingredients in a product. And so a lot of products on the market really, in order to provide that nutritional benefit that everybody's looking for, they have to really put a lot of extra ingredients into it in order to get it to proof properly or to get
Mhm.
it to stay fresh longer or whatever that looks like. And you can taste it in the end. And then there's other things that happen too when you have too many ingredients in a product. But ultimately, I just wanted something as simple as possible that would taste really good in all of the products that I was making for my clients. And then as we were doing this work, I myself have kind of yo yo dieted over the years. I'm approaching 50. As I get older, it's kind of harder to keep the weight off. And so I did the whole low carb thing for a while. And I was absolutely disgusted by the options that were on the market for these
Mhm.
carb breads. They're gross.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
taste
Yeah.
bad.
Most of them are. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they just taste like cardboard, and I just thought there's gotta be something better. So,
Mhm.
I tasted everything out there. I was so unimpressed with everything, and just as sort of a side hustle kind of thing, I handed the challenge off to a very, very brilliant food scientist who I worked with a lot at that time, and just said, "What can you do with this?" And so she started working on it, developing it on the side, and created our initial loaf of bread, which was just amazing. And that was in 2022. We
Wow.
developed it out of our commercial kitchen in Cincinnati, and it was perfect. And so immediately people were like, "Oh my God, you gotta do something with this." And so I was like, "Okay, let's give it a go." So 2022, for that first year, we started trying to make it and putting it in the market and doing it all ourselves. Well, we very quickly discovered that this is a difficult product to make. I needed help producing it. So I started working with other local bakeries in Cincinnati. And it was a year of absolute just it was just horrible. It was just one disaster after another. Like the bread consistently did not produce properly. So after a year of heartache and losing a lot of money and losing a lot of bread and a lot of ingredients, I basically said, "All right, I'm going to find a bakery that can make this to my specs without really molesting the formula by adding a bunch of crap to it that I don't like. And if I can
Mhm.
do it, great. If not, I'm walking away." I've decided to just gone to my limit with it. So in early 2023, I found a bakery, and it's outside of my hometown, way outside my hometown. But I think they felt sorry for me. So they took my bread, I gave them all my ingredients, and I went there and we ran it. And it honestly ran beautifully. Like it
Uh-huh.
and so I was off and running. So and I've been doing it ever since early 2023. I can't believe it's been over a year and a half now. And it's growing and it's a lot of fun and I love it. And here we are.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
It really is. And you're growing so quickly that you just got your own facility, right? Or a new facility that you share with somebody, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken.
Yeah. So I moved out. So the place where I developed the bread was a former Mexican restaurant. And I
Mhm.
used it for all of my commercialization work. I don't need it anymore because I don't need the kitchen because I don't do any of my baking there anymore. So I sort of worked out a little arrangement with a nonprofit in Cincinnati near my location. And they have frozen storage facility and warehouse facilities and truck docks, and all of that is like perfect for where I am now as a business because I need those more than a bakery. I've got the great bakery now. And so I basically bring all of that inventory home once it's baked and I install it in my food freezer containers in Cincinnati. Doh Joy, as you guys know, freezes really well. It freezes and
Yeah.
thaws perfectly. So I bring it home by I'm up to about a half a truckload every 6 weeks that I bring home. And then I've got some helpers in Cincinnati who basically help me take it out of the containers and we pick and pull and we put them into boxes and we ship them all over the country now.
So it really is like really small operation. I love that. And that's
It is.
when Beth introduced me to Doh Joy and many of our listeners as well. And then you and I connected.
Mhm.
That was what I would really liked most was that you were local and you were small business, right? Because you're
Yeah.
local-ish to me. You're just right down I-75 down in Cincy. I'm up in Toledo. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the entrepreneurial journey is it's
mhm,
rough, you
it
guys. Like,
is.
it's
Yeah.
hard.
We all need to support
Yeah.
each other.
I
Yeah.
know.
And so that's
Yeah.
what I was so grateful to you guys for just being so opening and I had like 500 followers when I reached out to you, Beth. I'm like, "Would you be interested?" And you're like, "Sure, send it to me." So refreshing. And like that first time that you posted about it, it just crushed me. But I'm keeping up with you now. So
I know. I love supporting things that I love and things that I would continuously eat or use all the time, which is not
Mhm.
a lot when people approach me
That's
on social
important to
media.
us.
Yeah, it's small. You're a small business. Your stuff is quality. I mean, it's all what I'm about with like the nutrients, high protein, high fiber. It's really hard for people to get fiber and protein in, but having them both together, especially for a bread,
Right. And I love
and
that too
it's
because I'm like, I can have
good.
healthy peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, right? Like, and I know that it's a healthy
telling you,
peanut
I
butter and
eat,
jelly, right?
yeah,
But
grilled cheese sandwiches. I eat it
yeah,
all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
I personally eat this bread all the time. People would expect that I do, but the number of people who tell me that they eat it all the time is
Mhm.
so gratifying.
mhm.
It just
And
it, because
bread
it
is one of
tastes
those
good,
things.
yeah, but it's helping people achieve their nutrition goals, and
Yeah.
Yes.
that's what I love about it.
Right. Like Beth said, it's literally like 93 to 95% of all Americans don't get enough fiber.
Yeah.
And bread is one of those things that have been so unfairly demonized for decades now, ever since the low carb craze really started in the early 90s with Atkins, right? So it's really unfortunate to see, and there's a direct correlation there, I'm sure, of not getting enough fiber, and now we're avoiding bread. And I just know when I was growing up, this is what I love about your product too, is your white bread. You got a white bread, right? And
Mm-hmm.
the white bread I grew up with, devoid of all
Yeah.
nutrition, bleached,
Right.
white, right, whatever you want to call it, but it was
Wonder bread.
Wonder Bread, yeah,
Yeah,
all
like
that
you,
type of
you
stuff.
That's what I grew up with.
yeah, me too. And you'd put peanut butter and jelly on it, and you'd take a bite, and then you'd hold it, and it would
Yeah.
disintegrate between your fingers. So there'd be like
Right.
no bread left, right?
And it's like I'm just
'Cause
eating peanut butter and jelly,
it was
literally.
so thin. That
Right,
Wonder bread, right?
right. So soft, it would just
Pinch
disappear.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But that's also the thing. Like, frankly, there's not a lot of fiber in most breads. Even
Right,
whole
right.
wheat breads
Yeah.
don't have a ton of fiber. We're talking 3 to 4 grams of fiber
Hmm.
versus Doh Joy has 11 grams per slice.
Yeah.
It's a
Which is incredible.
considerable
It's
difference.
very. I don't know of really any. There's maybe a couple products I know of that are similar in fiber, but definitely not with the protein punch that I think that you have too. I'm not sure.
Yeah. And I
It's
don't
really
think
hard to
there's
find.
anything with that much fiber bread wise that tastes that good.
Very
That's a
often.
very hard combo to obtain.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I just wasn't sure I was going to be able to make it work. It was
Mhm.
hard to achieve this. It really was.
Without using any of the products or ingredients that you didn't
Yeah.
want to, right?
Right, because a lot of low carb breads, so if you think about bread, it requires sugar and flour to run
Mhm.
because the
Right.
yeast needs something to eat, right?
Hmm.
In the absence of those sugars, essentially what happens is the yeast gas out. So they're active for a little bit and then they're gone. They have no more energy left. And so what I've learned through this process is the formula is one thing, the recipe is one thing, and there are special, but it's also the baking process has to be special. And so at the core of it, my bread has to be produced in high volume because the bread line has to move so fast
Oh wow. Okay.
because that yeast is only active for a certain amount of time. So if it's just sitting, I'm gonna have a bad batch of bread. And so that first couple of years, I was getting really inconsistent loaves. Sometimes they'd be big and fluffy, and I would celebrate it. Like, look at these fluffy loaves. We did
Yeah.
everything right. And then sometimes they'd be little bricks and they'd be just horrible. So now that I've got a good baking partner that has that line time that,
Yeah.
it just flies on the line. It works. It works.
Nice.
Yeah. So the mass market breads, the low carb breads, because they just produce differently, a lot of times they have to introduce other ingredients that artificially cause the bread to rise, but
Mhm.
Mhm.
and requires the addition of these extra ingredients that end up people know from the taste that there's something.
Right.
So
Right.
Now, how do you go about getting your bread in, let's say, main stores? Nationwide, I guess you could say, right? Let's say Whole Foods, for instance.
yeah.
What would it take to get Doh Joy into Whole Foods?
Well, that is the goal is to get into
Uh-huh.
stores, obviously, because
Yeah.
hate paying for shipping. It's so expensive to ship. And right
Right.
now, because I am small and I only have one facility, I have a lot of customers on the West Coast. And it does. I mean, it's in order to make it make sense, you gotta buy a bunch of bread and freeze it. And
Mhm.
so I have a
Right.
lot of people who do, but you want to try it before you buy it. So
Right.
getting it into grocery stores is the goal. The problem with that right now is it takes a lot of money to get into grocery stores because grocery stores immediately take 35 to 40% of my profit, my
It's all
margin.
about
Wow.
shelf space for them.
Okay.
So right off the bat, I'm losing half of my profit. I don't have a lot of profit to begin with. It's a loaf of bread.
Mhm.
It's
Right.
so I have to get it to a volume where I can make enough of it and people are buying enough of it that it makes sense for me to get it into a grocery store.
That's where people turn to like things like Shark Tank, like on the TV show, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so you
Yeah.
need an initial investment again to be able to get it into it's all chicken and egg. It's
Yeah.
really and at this point I've funded all of this myself.
That's amazing.
I am going to get some capital here soon to help
Okay.
get me to the next level. But
I know one thing that we've heard a lot of, I know I have, is Canada, right? Like, oh, I want to try it, but we don't have it in
gosh,
Canada, right?
yeah. Yeah, a
So
lot of people want to get it in
Is
Canada.
that more difficult getting into Canada than it would be, or just shipping to Canada,
It's
perhaps?
just the shipping because
Customs and stuff can be
it
a
takes a
pain.
longer time to get it through customs, and my bread has about 12 days from the time it leaves my facility. So, and
That's
if you're
pushing it
Freshness.
when you're taking into account customs.
I
Yeah,
mean, half the time I can't get it across the country in 5 days because of carrier delays. It's like it's the most agonizing part of my business is just
sure.
getting
I bet.
it needs to
Well, we
go.
don't have teleportation yet. Oh,
I wish. Yeah.
I don't think our
Yeah.
generation will get to
1 or 2
experience that,
days and get it to
unfortunately.
Canada. We'll definitely get it there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll get it to the lady, Marilyn. Do you know Marilyn? She's got the fart walk idea.
Oh, I love her. Yes, I don't know her last name though, but yeah, yeah.
Terrific.
I know her. She's great.
She's in Canada, and I so want to like get on her fart walk bandwagon and eat
Yeah.
What the hell is a fart walk?
Oh my goodness. She talks about she takes all these walks after she eats and she
Ah,
calls them
for digestion.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So that she
You
calls
just
them
let that
fart
rip.
walks. Yeah.
I love it.
Did
Yeah.
you know the average person farts like 25 times a day?
No, no.
That's
I believe it. I mean,
That's what
I
you're
know I'm
supposed to
full
be
of it.
doing 25 times a day. Let it rip.
Eat your fiber.
How ironic that we're on Cut the Crap talking about farting. So,
All the girls can
I
be.
never thought about that.
Yeah.
can you explain how you're able to get so much fiber into it? With what type of grains are you using
Yeah.
to get that?
So I use wheat. So basically, my wheat it's a special type of wheat. The best way I think to explain it is like this. So do you know when you cook rice, if you eat it right after you cook it, it's going to metabolize in your body the way any carb will. Now it's going to
Mm-hmm.
convert to sugar and energy, and you have a standard carbohydrate. When you put that rice in the refrigerator and it chills and then recook it, those starches change, they
Mm-hmm.
reconstitute, and now they are dietary fiber. And it's going to act as a resistant starch. It's going to resist digestion in your body. So that's a real thing, and that's basically the principle of the flour that I'm using in my bread. So it's resistant to digestion. So it's dietary fiber. It's passing through your gut, nourishing your gut as it goes through your body, and comes out the other side.
So, can you help our audience understand why that's important for that your body can't digest that?
Yeah, yeah. It's almost like a dietary supplement. People
Mhm.
need to
A
have.
real supplement, right?
Yeah, people need 25 minimum. I mean, you
Yeah.
guys are better than I do. 25 grams of fiber a day if you're a woman, and 2 slices of my bread get you that.
There's my
Just
sandwich in the morning right there. I fucking love
yeah,
it.
yeah. I mean, there's tons of reasons why you need fiber, and you guys
Mhm.
talk about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's passing your body. Now, I have a family member, and I'll share the story without revealing who my family member is because he would be very embarrassed. But very picky eater, and has struggled with blood sugar issues over the years. But he's been really resistant to eating my product, even though he's a family member and he loves me very much. But as it's grown and awareness builds and he's seeing reviews, and I've got a lot of really wonderful reviews on my website, he's decided to start eating it. So he's been eating it for a while now, and I didn't know. And he just out of the blue texted me the other day and he goes, "Just want you to know, been eating your bread. It's real good. And I have some regular stools now. So I want to thank you for that."
Hell yeah,
That's awesome. Oh my
for
gosh.
sure.
That's
So,
amazing.
yeah, so I feel like fiber is just this unsung nutrient,
I
and
agree. I agree.
yeah, it's
And we talk about like detoxing and things like that. That's literally what fiber is helping us do because our body is just passing it through. So
It's the
what do we
broom,
think it's doing? It's collecting shit on the way out,
right?
literally, like collecting
it
all the
really does.
stuff that we don't want in us.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. It helps with. It can actually help with your cholesterol because it's
Oh
like
yeah. That's
picking
what
up
helped
on.
my cholesterol go down. I increased my fiber and my doctor is very happy with I think I dropped like 30 points within like 6 months by
Yeah.
really prioritizing fiber. I mean, I knew how important it was before, but I really wasn't paying attention to I thought I was getting enough until I
Exactly.
actually,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think a lot of other people do too. They're like, well, I think I'm eating enough. It's like, most likely you're probably not.
Because most people aren't eating enough vegetables, which is a
Right.
Yeah.
primary source of fiber.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And so this becomes just another easy way for you to
Yeah.
start getting more.
Yeah.
Right.
You may not like vegetables, but pretty sure you're going to like a slice of bread. It's super easy,
Everybody likes bread.
right?
Like, if you tell me you don't like bread, I'm going to call you a liar.
Right. Right. Fiber is help preventable of diseases. It's like stay a healthy human.
And we talk about it as a habit too, right? And that's one of those things. It's so easy to do. It's one of those sensible swaps. And because we're not asking people to take away anything. We're not asking them to restrict anything. We're just, hey, let's take a look at the regular bread you're eating already and see if we can make it a little bit more sensible, right? These sensible swaps. And those things add up. And that's what we usually do when we first start working with a client, is looking at their log. And that's the first thing I look at. I don't even look at usually calories or fat or protein. I'm like, all right, how much fiber are they getting? It's usually like 7 or 8 grams a day that I would probably guess most people are eating.
Right.
And it's
That's
crazy.
that's nothing.
Yeah.
And then people wonder why they're constipated. I mean, so many people that I'm like, I don't know how you can live a day without going to the bathroom. I mean, it's, you know what I mean? It's just, it's normal for some people.
Normal for them. Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of the other tricky thing about fiber too, is if you don't have enough of it, it does take time for your body to get used to eating it. And so people will
Mhm.
say, I get gassy and my stomach gets upset.
hmm hmm
And it might take your body some time
So
to,
Yeah.
that's one of those things when doing more fiber, definitely do it slowly, gradually. Don't just go
Right.
from 5 to 25 consistently. That might give you
You'll feel
some
it.
GI issues, but also at the same, make sure you're increasing your water intake too when you increase fiber. Same with protein.
yeah. That's why these rolls that people love so much, I'm obsessed with
Your
eating.
dinner rolls?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
Yes. Oh my
So,
God. The
there's
dinner rolls. I need to get Thanksgiving. You're probably way sold out of those, huh?
Well, I'm not. I actually have a
No?
new batch. So yeah, I've got enough to go around. So people need to get their orders in before Monday to ensure Thanksgiving delivery. That's my one plug I'll do.
Here we go.
But,
Yeah. Well, be prepared, just so you know.
Yes. Yes. We
it is
don't
a
we do not
sharing.
recommend things very often, especially on our
Right.
podcast or even on our socials. So when we do, like, people know it's legit. So,
Yeah.
and we've talked about you
Well,
before on the
the
podcast.
thing about those rolls though, people need to know. I mean, 20 grams of fiber per roll. Like it's a lot of fiber.
Yes.
So if you're not used to eating fiber, be careful. Maybe
Don't eat be in a couple of those a day
yeah.
is what you're saying, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I snack on them now. Like if I'm
Yeah.
hungry, I grab a roll because I know it's going to
They're
keep,
hardy. They're really hardy.
Yeah.
yeah, they
Yeah.
keep you really full. So they're
hmm
travel snacks for me.
Yeah. Perfect travel rolls.
Especially for travel, because that's one of the hardest things to eat enough of when you're traveling is fiber. That's protein so easy to do. You got beef jerky, you got protein shakes, but really, what do you have for fiber when you're traveling? Maybe a gas station might have a weird banana or an apple, but
Yeah.
maybe that's
Not
not really
much.
Yeah.
much else.
One other thing I wanted to mention too, you hear a lot of people say, well, I just don't eat bread anymore. I've just cut it out of my diet. I hear it a lot. And a lot of people who are in that camp, number one, because they've tried the other options on the market and they don't like them. That was me. But also for people who are watching their blood sugar,
Hmm.
there's a lot of skepticism out there about these
Yeah.
keto breads and low carb breads because they will still spike blood sugar for a lot of people.
Hmm.
And everybody's response to sugar is different. It's a very individualistic thing. But, if you are consistently spiking on a product that claims to have 0 grams sugar in it and keto, I can understand why people would be upset about these low carb breads that are on the market that claim to be good for them and safe for them.
Can you speak about perhaps maybe some of the labeling that goes on with the products too? Because I know that can be a really confusing thing for people, especially when it comes to the low carb breads and the keto breads and stuff.
Especially if
Right,
you're diabetic and you have to pay attention to that stuff.
Yeah.
right. Which 1 in 3 people either have diabetes, pre-diabetes, or insulin resistance. So it's
Hmm.
something that a big portion of the population needs to be.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that I hear from people who do have diabetes or are watching their sugar is they'll say, "Well, what is a net carb?"
hmm
Mm.
Net
hmm
carbs. That sounds I'm suspicious. And the food industry, it's their way of demonstrating that a product that has total carbs but still has a lot of fiber, like it's that difference, so that if somebody's looking at something and they want to eat it but they're concerned that it's going to spike their blood sugar, well then a net carb basically tells them it's going to be okay. It doesn't have that much sugar in it. It's tricky though, right? Because there's all
Mhm.
kinds of different types of carbs. There's soluble and insoluble fiber. And
Hmm.
so most folks who are really being careful about that just want to know the total carbs. And then they'll also look at the fiber, and they may or may not be aware that the fiber really does offset the carb impact on your
Mhm.
blood sugar.
Yeah.
Right.
So
As
it's
well as having that protein profile in there too.
right. And I think my fat source also plays a role in the blood sugar friendliness of my bread too, because it is
Okay.
solid coconut oil and it's in there at a ratio that I think just in totality makes the whole thing just
And that would make sense because fat helps to transport our vitamins and everything that we're consuming around our body. So if you're using a different type of fat than another product is, you could be more efficient at doing that, perhaps.
Hmm.
yeah, I very intentionally chose coconut oil as my fat source because for a lot of reasons, it's solid coconut oil and it helps give it the airiness that my product has that a lot of others like it don't have.
Hmm.
And then apple cider vinegar, which is also a really nice, heart healthy, has lots of benefits to it as well.
Hmm.
Yeah. And there's some little bit of research out there showing how it can help with blood sugar as well. Yeah.
Apple cider vinegar.
Apple cider vinegar. Yeah.
It's good for gut health
Hmm.
and all the things. I chose it for the flavor first. I mean, obviously I wanted it to be healthy, but my best selling product is sourdough, my sourdough style bread. It isn't actually sourdough because it has no sugar
Hmm.
in it, so therefore the dough can't ferment like a regular sourdough. So I
Hmm.
replicate the flavor using apple cider vinegar.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So that's
Gotcha.
that's
I feel
how
like
I.
sourdough is a really big craze right now. I know
Oh yeah.
everybody that
It
I'm
is,
Facebook
right?
friends with and on Instagram. Well, maybe not on Instagram, but on Facebook. I feel like it's dying down now, but everybody's making bread. Everybody's baking
Well,
bread.
I think it started in 2020 where everyone was home and everyone started doing their sourdough
Like I see everybody
starters,
swapping their starters and everything on Facebook and
Yeah, I mean, what do you want to call it? Father-in-law he has Alzheimer's now, but used to make sourdough all the time. And he had this starter that he would use. I mean, he had it for 20 plus years and he
Mhm.
was using the same one. Like every week he would make more sourdough. And then I'd start seeing it on TikTok and Instagram. I'm like, okay, this is what's happening now. Everyone have they named their starters like Pam from 1980 still with me? Seriously.
It's wild. It's wild.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
something I'm actually interested in about is can we talk about gluten as well? Because you're
Hmm.
obviously I don't think we can talk about baking and bread without talking about gluten.
Yeah.
Because that's one that people talk about a lot. Where there's so many gluten-free products. No, not everybody, of course, needs gluten-free products, but what is the buzz with gluten and the baking and bread?
So it's the question I get the most.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure.
Is your bread gluten free? And the answer is my bread is made with wheat, but it doesn't end there. So because my wheat is a resistant starch and it passes through the body without digesting, essentially the gluten acts in the same manner. So it's a high protein gluten. So that starchy component of the flour doesn't metabolize the way it does in traditional breads. So therefore, the bread is actually for many people, and I cannot generalize this for everybody.
Hmm.
If you're
Mhm.
celiac, I would never recommend it. But
Right.
if you're gluten sensitive, most people tell me they're able to tolerate it very well.
Got it.
That's
So
awesome.
could never say it's gluten free. It's not
Sure.
gluten free, but it is resistant gluten that passes through the body.
And I think the gluten free is which is another one of those things. Like I know there's a very real use case for it, but that's another one of those things that got completely blown out of proportion and became another health fad, another save you overnight type thing. Just eliminate gluten from our diet. So, yeah,
Hmm.
I think like everything, it's everything in moderation, right? Like it,
Hmm.
yes,
and that was part of my problem. Like I love sourdough bread so much. I would I
Hmm.
couldn't stop eating. Like it just I craved it and I ate too much of it and I suffered as a result. And if I have a reasonable amount, I'm sure I would be fine with it. But I find the same thing to be true with sugar. If I start allowing myself to have some sugar, oh my God, I start craving sugar all the time. If I have a Coke, I can't even because I will not be able to have just one Coke. I will have all the Cokes. So I think it's really just about your ability to be just have some restraint when it comes to these foods, knowing that for some of us, some foods are harder than others to avoid.
For sure. I think that's a good way to putting it is for some of us some foods are harder to avoid than others or to have that restraint than others. Earlier you also mentioned your own kind of history with dieting. What's been that like for you? I know you said you're coming up on 50, so I'm sure you've seen it all throughout the decades as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was part of the low carb craze. I was trying to do all of that, and I think I discovered what a lot of people discovered was initially when I first started it, it worked. I dropped pounds as a result of doing it, but I was never able to sustain it because restrictive diets just are difficult to maintain for very long.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I think it's like 45% of people on any given day are dieting, but the vast majority of them end in failure. They end up regaining all of the weight and then some. I mean,
Mhm.
there's all these statistics out there. And
Right.
yeah, so I was in that group. I was trying to do those things and it worked for a while and then it didn't. And I just found that allowing myself to eat foods that I love and that I enjoy and that have the bonus of having nutritional benefits that actually
I
work
like that.
for my diet
Yeah.
Yeah.
is what works for me. And
Mhm.
I feel better. Like that's when you're carrying too much for me, if I'm carrying 5 extra pounds, I can feel it. I can feel it in my joints. I can feel it. I just don't feel good. And so being at my ideal weight for me is also just it makes me feel better. So these are all things that I've learned as I've aged.
Hmm. You said
Yeah.
something that's really important there. You can eat food that tastes good, that's nutritious as well.
Mhm.
And I think that's really what we should be looking to do more of instead of looking at what can we take away, right? And healthifying everything. There's this big trend. I mean, it's not a trend. We've been doing it for a long time, healthifying
Right.
everything, right?
Right. Yeah.
But
Cauliflower crust,
cauliflower rice, cauliflower crust, yeah, low
and
carb, right?
everything.
Everything, high protein, this and all have their benefits, high protein and everything, but not everything needs to be just nutritious. But we can look for that kind of that holy grail of finding delicious and nutritious foods, and that's really what it's all about in terms of long-term sustainability.
Mhm.
Is
Yeah.
you kind of left the dieting behind and kind of just started the you diet, right? That's something we talk about. Is you created the Julie diet, found some
Well,
foods that worked for
honestly,
you.
yeah, I mean, because for me, bread has always been my favorite food. Like I
Hmm.
Mhm.
grew up eating bread and baked goods. My grandmother was a wonderful cook and that's what I associate comfort and joy with. The smell of baked
Mhm.
goods, that's a lovely memory that I have that's
Mhm.
lodged in my brain and I'm not giving that up.
As you
So to,
shouldn't.
yeah, so
Right.
to be able to create this bread that now really is a staple in my diet. It's not something I'm
Mhm.
indulging in every once in a while. This is a staple food for me.
Yeah.
That has really been the thing that has certainly for the last 3 years, my weight hasn't changed a bit, and I haven't
Mhm.
dramatically changed anything else in my lifestyle.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I exercise about the same amount that I always have. I've gotten a little older, and so metabolism is downshifting a little, but I'm still staying at the same weight, eating food I love. So,
Mhm.
And you mentioned staple foods. That's really important is having those go-tos, those basics, really that building
Mhm.
those foundational components of your nutrition so that it's easy, so it's simplified. So you know what you're going to be eating. You enjoy what you're eating.
and I don't know about you guys, but I really don't love to cook. All right. So I've made this bread and
I
I
don't.
Mhm.
I love to
I
eat. I love to
I love cooking. I love cooking.
I don't get the love out of cooking that so many
Mhm.
people do, right? And so for me, having foods that are just easy to make, that I can grab and go, throw
Mhm.
this
Yeah.
like what's
That's
easier
me.
than making a sandwich, right? It's the simplest thing
Yes.
and it's enjoyable. I'm not trying to make a sandwich out of a lettuce wrap.
Right. Right.
Make a
Never
sandwich
again with the lettuce
Or
wraps.
a bell pepper.
and
I used
it's
to
so
order Jimmy
yeah.
John's and get an unwich style and convince myself that I was doing something.
And then 2 hours later you're hungry again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not
I just had a
filling.
big ball of protein, which is awesome, but like I had nothing else, and my hands get all sloppy.
And then you're technically unsatisfied. I think what people don't realize is
The unwich is unsatisfying you.
if you're actually eating something to try to make it lower calorie and it's not really something that you wanted in the first place, you're going to end up overeating in the long term because you never were satisfied for what you wanted to begin with.
Right.
Yeah.
And we know that from a research standpoint, from a psychology standpoint too. Biggest determining factor of sticking with any diet or workout program is enjoyment, right? And that's why when people ask us what the best diet is, well, it's what do you how do you like to eat? That's the best diet right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So what's your diet like in a typical day, Matt?
So for me, I have my foundation, my staple for breakfast. It's usually oatmeal, or I'll do a sandwich. So that's where I love to have my high protein, high fiber sandwiches. Bread for that.
You're a big
So
peanut butter and smashed raspberry
yeah. So
sandwich guy.
if I'm not doing oatmeal, it's a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with a good bread on there, raspberries, a little bit of honey. That's my go-to for breakfast because it's even more convenient than oatmeal. Diet wise, for like dinner, I a lot of home cooking for dinner in terms of comfort foods. So you think about those really rich foods that we had growing up. My girlfriend loves to cook those, and I love to eat them. So a lot of things like meatloaf and all those traditional foods that people like, oh my God, I can't have that when I'm dieting, can't have that when I'm losing weight, right? So it's always fun to have those too, because what I do is I'll look at ways that we can get more vegetables into those meals then
Hmm.
too. So I start adding
Yeah.
more fresh frozen vegetables, steamables. We do lots of side salads here, so we do a lot of side salads, as Beth can attest to.
Hmm.
Salad making is really an art, and my girlfriend and her roommate make really good salads. So I usually have a salad with most meals as well. Lunch is more flexible. That's usually my go-to. I'm on the road because I live a very busy life in terms of how much driving and things I need to do. I live in rural Ohio here. So like for me to go anywhere, it's 30 to 45 minutes to get my son to go see my girlfriend, whatever. So usually my lunch options, I just keep that simple as well. I just like to have a good fast food that I like to go to, or a cafe that I like to go to that's got a good power bowl or fajitas or something like that, like Chipotle or something like that. It's very simple. Is my diet. I try to get whole foods, prioritize carbohydrates, protein, and fiber. Really carbohydrates mostly for me because I run a
Hmm.
lot, so I need a lot of carbs.
Yeah.
So
The Doh Joy is my everyday breakfast. Doh Joy and peanut butter with my yogurt and berries and my pumpkin seeds almost every single day because I'm a peanut butter and toast person. I love like even before the gym, like that's my pre-workout. Doh Joy, sourdough, or the seeded with peanut butter and banana. Before that, it was Nature's Own. So now I've switched to Doh Joy for I think a year now. It's been maybe.
I keep you pretty stocked.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's amazing. Like my whole family. And then lunch is like a sandwich with Doh Joy rolls. Usually
there's all your fiber right there for the
it
day.
rotates. I get like 40 plus grams of fiber a day now.
Hmm.
Wow.
And my stomach is used to it.
Yeah, I was gonna
I
say,
can,
did it take you time to get used to that?
I think it took me a little bit of time, but not too much because I was gradually like adding it like with the oatmeal and stuff. And I wasn't doing like 2 times a Doh Joy a day. I was keeping it at one for a while and then added some and noticed it was okay.
So it's interesting. I actually had a meeting yesterday with the grocery store chain. So not to get
Uh-huh.
excited yet because we're not there yet, but it would be a small
Right.
test just to kind of figure out where my bread should be merchandised in the store.
Mm-hmm.
Because logically you would think the bread aisle, but
Right.
so easy to get lost in the bread aisle. And then people are like, why, what is this? It'll take a long time for it to be adopted there. So we were brainstorming other places in the store.
Mm-hmm.
And we sort of landed on the potential of it going into the wellness aisle, which is where in this particular chain, you have like the protein bars and then you have protein drinks like Ensure and those types of drinks. But then
Yeah.
there's also like a dietary supplement section.
Hmm.
So I don't know how I feel about that, but when you compare Doh
It could
Joy,
challenge people's ideas of what a supplement is. I
yeah,
mean,
it's
food is the best
on
supplement
par.
there is.
It's on par
Yeah.
with the dietary supplement in terms of the amount of fiber you're getting. So
Yeah. Or
anyway,
even in the freezer section.
And let's be real here. If they're going there for a fiber supplement and they see a bottle of fiber pills for $50 and they see a
Yeah, I'd rather get the
loaf of
bread.
Doh Joy bread for, I don't know how much it would be in a store, but a lot less than $50, right?
Yeah.
yeah,
That gets them curious. What's this all about? That's interesting.
try it. I've tried merchandising it in the freezer, Beth, and
Mm.
people are just not in the habit of buying bread in the freezer.
Me
So
personally, I
He
don't
is.
like Ezekiel bread, so I stay away
I
from
love
freezer.
Ezekiel too.
I
I
stay away
do.
from bread that I see in because to me it tastes like cardboard, like we talked about earlier.
yeah,
You think I think Ezekiel I like Ezekiel too. I mean I like all
My
different
dad's been
types of
trying to get me to
breads,
like
but
it for years, but
if
it's
I
not gonna
want something
happen.
real thick and like chewy and grainy, Ezekiel. But
Got it.
it's very dense.
It is.
Very,
It
very
is.
dense.
It
Yeah.
is hearty. Hmm.
it doesn't
It-
taste as much like the bread that you'd want to eat with a sandwich.
I was gonna say it's not a good sandwich bread.
Correct.
It's a good toast and butter bread.
Okay.
That's
Hmm.
what I think. Yeah. I know. The bread connoisseur over here.
Beth, the bread connoisseur.
The bread connoisseur. I like all types of bread. French bread, sourdough.
That's,
Just give it to
I
me.
think when we talk about bread, Beth, on our social medias, those are
Hmm.
probably some, at least for me, it's some of my best content, best performing content when I talk about bread.
Yeah,
People,
like
people fear it so much.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, whenever I introduce it back, I get so bloated. I'm like, okay, you guys don't understand the correlation of the reason why you're bloated. It's because you stayed away from it. It's not because the bread is
You're
intentionally
reintroducing food that
bad
you've
for
been.
you. Right. Hmm.
Well, it's just
So,
like, I mean, it's yeah, because they don't understand the digestive and things like that, right? It's like with running, when we're
hmm
talking about fueling your bodies and stuff with our workouts. I love that I'm putting running into this talk about bread, but you don't, with the fueling, the gels that you have and the types of food that you can fuel with, there are all carbs, right? Sugars and fats and things like that. So you have to be careful with introducing too many of those things or doing too much too quickly because you could get GI issues just like you would
gassy,
if you were doing any of that. Yeah, gassy and things like that.
bloated. Hmm.
Mhm.
yeah, but it's essential. You need it. You've
Yes.
got to get your body used to it, and if you want it to run properly, you just do.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
How do you guys feel about for folks who are insulin resistant or who are facing diabetes? There's this concept of reversing diabetes through lifestyle. Do you?
Yep, I
Oh yeah.
do. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
I
Type
mean,
2
insulin
diabetes.
resistance,
Type 2
right.
diabetes, not type 1. Um,
Insulin resistance can be reversed by diet and exercise
yes,
and
indeed.
losing fat
That's
from
something
having extra adipose tissue.
I'm trying to basically, I'm doing a little blood sugar study right now. So if
Hmm.
you go to my website, I've got a tab at the top and it says blood sugar study. So if you've eaten Doh Joy and you monitor your blood sugar, I'm asking people to send in their numbers,
Okay.
pictures of their numbers before pre and post meal and show what that sugar spike.
That's cool. Yeah.
And for the most part, I've gotten so much good feedback from people. Like one of the joys of being on this entrepreneurial journey has been this sort of unexpected discovery that it is really good for people who are monitoring their blood sugar.
Yes.
I expected people to like it, but I didn't
I would argue that if you need to monitor your blood sugar, fiber is one of the best things, probably the best thing you can do for that.
right.
Hmm.
And so many people have been they're just disillusioned by these bread companies out there that
Hmm.
are claiming to be low carb but still spike their blood sugar. So they're discovering mine and they're finding that it doesn't. And I get these just amazing emails and
Hmm.
comments, reviews from people saying thank you for making this bread. And I don't have diabetes. I certainly have a family history of it, but that it's just one of the gifts that's come out of this.
Yeah.
Well, I want to better understand it. So if you have listeners who want to participate in this blood sugar study, I'm offering $5 off their next online purchase if they just go online and just do that little exercise to just be able to show people out there what it does to their blood
Hmm.
sugar so people can make informed choices because
That's cool.
certainly it's not for everybody. As you mentioned, Matt, like a type 1 diabetic, it's probably I mean, I do have some type 1s who tell me that it keeps them pretty steady too, but everybody is different.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I just meant about reversing diabetes in the context of type
Yeah,
1 versus type 2.
right, right. It's
Yeah.
not
Hmm.
possible in type 1, but
Right.
Right.
amongst those folks with type 1, some of them also do find that Doh Joy is a blood sugar friendly food.
Hmm.
Not all do. And so I want to know what everybody's experiencing. I'll put the ones that are spiking up there next to the ones that aren't, because I think people just
That's important.
have the confidence that it's for them or it's
Hmm.
not for
Hmm.
them. So yeah, I'd love for your listeners, if they have had Doh Joy, to participate in
And I
that.
really want to highlight what you just said that even if they send you somewhere, it shows an unfavorable response for your product, you would still post that because that's called a bias. If you were to not do that, that would be a bias. And that's what we cannot have when we're trying to give people accurate information out there so they can make
Yeah.
informed decisions. And
Right.
so that just made me respect you a lot. Not that I didn't, I just respect you a lot more for that.
Well, transparency is just key. I think that's again part of the reason why folks who are watching their blood sugar are excited about this, because they keep seeing the feedback from people who have been unable to eat bread because of the blood sugar impact so many times with so many breads, and now they've found it and they want to tell everybody about it. And
Hmm.
So I just want to make it easy for people to get on there and see. But I did get an email today, just today, it was top of mind, from a woman who was monitoring it with her son, who is a type 1 diabetic, and his spiked. And she said, I tried it 2 or 3 times with your vanilla wheat bread and it spiked and it spiked. And I get it. Like, somebody who has type 1 diabetes has no insulin production. They
Mhm.
pancreas is not functioning. And I don't expect it to work for everybody. I would love
Right.
for a lot of people, but I want everybody to just know what they're getting into.
Yeah.
And that's important for people to understand too, is that there is nothing that's out there that's for everybody, probably.
And very important.
We deal with that on a daily basis
Valid.
in our content on social media, that
Yeah. I
our
mean,
people get triggered left and right because this message wasn't for me or whatever. This didn't work for me, or right. So
it really is a one size fits all. When someone's like, well, I have adverse reaction to that. And then that's like bad, right? But it's like, well, not everybody is you. Like everything is really all individual. Some
mhm.
people are allergic to peanut butter. Some people are allergic to dairy. Does that mean those things are now bad? No, but they're bad for you. And that's what people
Yeah.
really need to understand. They have to start getting the emotion out of it and using their logical brain.
Oh, I know. I see it sometimes too. It's wild. It's wild the things people say, and
Hmm. But we're all here to make a difference and make people healthier.
We
So,
are. It's a cool little
and
happy
that's,
accident of your business there, that you're able to help people with their health and wellness too.
yeah,
I feel I'm really proud to be able to.
you should be.
I mean,
Hmm.
again, I just wanted to make a bread that would make me be able to enjoy it without feeling like I was gaining weight. And I know there's all kinds of nuances to all of that, but at
Right.
the end of the day, I wanted bread that would allow me to be able to eat it and stay skinny. I mean, that was my motivation,
Hey, I
right?
appreciate your honesty.
Long as it
Right.
fits my feet, that was my
Have
motivation.
your bread. You're
Gotta be
saying you're saying you wanted to have your bread and eat it too,
Yeah, I
right?
totally did. And then this is the happy result is
Yeah.
it's
Yes, there's nothing wrong with wanting to eat for your goals, right? Like that's what you wanted to be able to do, eat for your goals and
And
yeah.
hey, yeah.
enjoy the food
I
that
have
you're
a
eating,
lot
like
of
you said
people.
earlier.
Yeah, I have people who comment like that's diet culture speak, saying that you feel guilty about eating bread. You shouldn't feel guilty about eating. Well, look, I felt guilty about eating bread. I'm sorry, maybe it's flawed thinking, but I felt guilty about eating bread. I don't anymore.
Right, it's still an emotion, like because that's something that we'll say, right? Like, is oh,
Mhm.
it's how can you be guilty for eating bread? But we get it. That's still a human emotion, and that's a valid emotion that you felt. Just because we don't feel that, like Beth was just saying,
And I also think that the way that you guys teach nutrition and fat loss and weight loss now is just different than it was not so long ago at all.
yeah,
Yeah.
So that's what I grew up in,
hmm
restricting
Mhm.
carbs and restricting like sugar, like they were evil. That was the reality I knew back then.
Yeah.
So I
And with
don't
this bread, let's be real, like with the protein and the fiber, it's going to keep you full longer. So, in all actuality, you can eat more because it's lower calorie and it's filling you up rather than eating other breads that may not fill you up as much. So then you actually end up overeating because we all know, like, if you have too much of anything, you will gain fat, right?
yeah. Because with the protein, I think we didn't talk about that as much, but there with that higher protein content, because protein and fiber is like if you're talking about fat loss, that's a literal fat loss, weight loss boxing
Combo.
match. 1-2 punch is protein fiber. You get those two numbers up, you start consuming more of those things, and amazing things happen. Our clients,
Yeah.
we know this because we do it with our clients every day. So,
Yeah.
is it the grain? Then I know we're running out of time, but we I want to talk about the protein as well in the bread. So, where's the protein coming from in the bread as well, Julie?
yeah, two primary sources. One is wheat, so
Hmm.
the protein, but then I also so sunflower seeds are the hero.
Mm.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I use them. I grind the whole sunflower seed, so granulated sunflower seed, and then sunflower protein is the other source
Oh.
where it's the extracted protein of the sunflower. So
The
it's very
extract. Okay,
concentrated protein uh,
gotcha.
coming from sunflowers.
Cool. So they're a
Yeah.
nice little varied protein source in there then too.
Yeah, and
Is
it's
is it
interesting
a
because
complete? Does it have a complete amino acid profile? Your bread or no?
it's certainly not as complete as a whole food
Uh
source.
huh. Uh huh.
Claim it is, but I do
But
use a lot of very whole food ingredients in the bread, so it's
Hmm.
better than most.
yeah, it's good to have varied. That's why we can't just be eating just one type of food. We need all of these
But
different types of foods.
but sort of a funny story relating to my sunflower seed because it is such a nutrition packed source of food. in using this through the testing phase, one of the potential killer issues was I would bake this bread, and when it came out of the ovens, we would put it onto a metal cooling rack, which is common in a bakery. And I was mortified to find it after it had cooled when I lifted up the underside of the bread on the bottom where the racks were, there were lines and they were green. It was green.
Mm.
And it wasn't because of mold, it was because
The sunflower.
it was the chlorogenic acid in contact with the hot metal causing it to turn green. So that gives you an idea of how much is in there. Like
Mhm.
it was enough to turn the bread green in when it was exposed to that metal.
That's interesting.
So
Yeah.
I wanted to be able to tell people this is actually really great. It's evidence of how good it is for you because
Yeah.
chlorogenic acid.
Not a bad thing, right? Well,
Right. That happened to me
barnacles!
when I used sunflower butter to cook, when I like went through one of my phases, not eating peanut butter for whatever reason, it would turn like everything that I cooked
Yes.
green. Like my
Yes.
muffins were green.
Yes. I use that too. And sometimes I'll demo and I have to be careful sometimes about people who have peanut allergies. So I'll use that.
Mhm.
It does have like a green cast to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, not very appetizing. Not exactly something I want to be able to,
We want to see that, right? But
Right.
I had batches of bread come out with all these lines on it. And like the worst thing was trying to number one, sell it and people going like, that's gross. And number two, then having to pitch it. It was just, oh my gosh. So many
Mhm.
stories from that first year in market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you got to take those bumps and bruises along the way.
Yeah. I've got a lot of them
It's all part of the process, right?
for sure.
So,
Oh.
Julie, we're at an hour here. I know we just talked a lot about Doh Joy, but we didn't really mention where people can find you. You mentioned your
Yeah.
website earlier.
Oh yes. Dohjoy.com, DOHJOY. Put the O in dough. OE.
Doh.
Sorry, super cheesy. I'm sorry.
Oh, and Doh.
Yeah, so everything you need is on the website. We ship nationally. The only places we don't ship anymore, and I did try, gave it a good effort. We had some people wanting to order in Alaska and Hawaii, and
Mm.
just
Yeah.
it just didn't work out. So those are two areas that we'll have to come around to once we're a little bigger and have more
Yeah.
locations.
Hopefully that happens quickly.
We only ship on Mondays and Tuesdays currently because we are shipping out of one location and I want to give people affordable shipping options. And that sometimes means 4 or 5 day ships,
Mhm.
which can sometimes extend to 7 days when the carriers are not on the ball. So I only do Monday, Tuesday to help minimize it sitting somewhere over.
Okay.
Mhm.
But even if it does, we still pack it so that it helps preserve the life of the bread. We double bag it, and we use a special preservative in one of our bags to help extend it. So all those things generally work. I don't have too many
Mhm.
reships. Sometimes I do, but that's just how it is.
I've never had an issue, and I'm in Maine.
Good. Yeah, yours takes
Where everything takes forever to get to you.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm on the end of the fucking US here. I mean, I am.
Well, you kind of are, yeah.
I'm at the tippy top, right? And so, I mean, I've never had a problem. It's always fresh for me.
good. Good. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So for now, you've got us shipping, and hopefully by next year we may be in a retail location, but we'll
Ooh,
see.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not trying to rush into that game because I've seen
Yeah.
too many brands do that and
Mm.
collapsing under it because
Yeah.
it's expensive and
Build a strong foundation first.
Right.
so for the people who
Hell
really
yeah.
need the most, they can get it at home. And
Yeah.
we'll see where things
Sweet.
go next year. Yeah.
Well, good luck
Awesome.
next year.
So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for being here and chatting with us.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Julie.
Hope you enjoyed this episode, so why not share with a friend who needs to hear it? Send us a DM on Instagram or email us at cutthecrappod@gmail.com and join our Patreon at patreon.com/cutthecrappodcast. As always, we appreciate you and thanks for being here.